What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Your Weed Stories on the Craft Growers Network. And today we have a very special guest, Jorge Cervantes. And Jorge Cervantes, he has inspired more people to grow than anyone that I know through his books, The Indoor Marijuana Grower's Bible, as well as he had a more straight book for the straight audience called Growing Indoors. And these books are in so many languages. Jorge, how many languages are your books in now?
11.
11
11,
languages.
11 languages, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I said, he's inspired more people around the world to grow cannabis than anyone that I know. We're so happy to have him on the show. Welcome, Jorge.
Oh, gee, Gabby, thank you. Thank you so much. We've known each other for a heck of a long time.
Yeah, it's been
I
20
used to have,
years.
yeah, I know. I used to have a house in California in Sonoma, which is pretty
It's where I
close to
live.
Willits. It's not that far away. Yeah, and I was just watching the interview with Kevin Jodrey,
He told me
and
to say hello.
yeah. I love Kevin. He's great. He's done so much good stuff, man. I mean, when he started that Wonderland Nursery, dang, that was great. But see, he's one of the guys, and one of the things he said in his interview was his timing was good because he got into it publicly at the perfect time, and for me, my timing was horrible. I mean, I got into it when it was like about as illegal as you could get. I figured it was going to be legal, but yeah, I mean, I wrote the first book there in 1983, and there was a full blown drug war going on, or war on drugs going on.
But that might have added to the popularity of the book.
No, fuck. I was,
No?
see, the problem is you couldn't get into the big distributors didn't want to carry it. And then within no time, I got on the theft list
The what
because people,
list?
theft, steal, as
Mm-hmm.
in take away something that's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason, because then they'd have to lock the books up. They'd have to lock them up. And so people were intimidated. They were afraid to go buy books.
So they
So they
stole
would,
them.
yeah, so they'd steal them. It was faster, easier, and they'd risk getting caught there. Yeah. But I was on the theft list for Barnes and Noble and Borders and God, all of the big stores. Yeah. And yeah, so that was pretty tough. And then, I mean, I had a lot of trouble. People didn't want to, well, printers just didn't want to print it. I, 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 I had a heck of a hard time finding a printer. And the first book, actually, I printed it myself. I printed with these hands. I didn't have any money either, and nobody wanted to take any chances. And I remember what was it, Andor Press? That was one of the companies I submitted a manuscript to. They said over there that everything that needs to be written about cannabis has already been written, and that was yeah. That was pretty funny.
That's still not
And
true.
no, not even close. I mean, we're just scratching the surface now. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, the book was rejected. Nobody wanted it. They said it was a dumb idea and all of that. And so I printed it myself and self-published it. In that way, I was good for timing because that's when self-publishing started. I bought a K-Pro computer, K-Pro computer, and was able to do typesetting and everything. And then it was tons of work. Yeah, that was pre-internet. I'm looking. You can go to my website, Jorge, guion, Jorge-Cervantes.com.
Okay, I'm doing that right now.
Jorge-Cervantes.com. and you can see my history. It's pretty complete, actually. I don't have the last few books on there that I've written, but yeah, I published more than 50 books. 50 books. I can't believe it. I didn't realize I'd published that many. Yeah.
Oh, I love this photo over here with the fake dreadlocks.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Hey, so what I wanted to do, if you're willing to humor us, is I wanted to start off as early as we can. So, for instance, like your first experiences with cannabis.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you may have to ask, qualifying questions and stuff
Well, so
because
when
like,
was the first time you saw cannabis? When was the first time you smoked cannabis? And eventually we'll get to the first time you grew it.
well, I saw the leaf and stuff because see, I grew up in a small town,
Where was
small
that?
agricultural town, Ontario, Oregon, and it's right on the border with Idaho. And everybody lives out there. I mean, they're all farmers. Everybody's a farmer, you know. That's the main occupation, and or having to do with farming. And so it's very, very conservative. And there was all of those. Gosh, I graduated high school in 1972. And I think the first time I smoked cannabis was 71 when I was a junior in high school. Because number one, it was hard to get. It wasn't real common to see. Yeah, 1971, and we, I'd heard all kinds of horrid things about it. Everybody was there. There was a big anti-cannabis program, anti-pot program, anti-marijuana program going on, and it was in the schools and everywhere. So I mean, I couldn't wait to try it. And so what happened? One of my friends scored a three-finger Mexican lid, that Mexican dirt weed. I mean, you guys from Europe don't know about that stuff, but it's like the Paraguayo or something. It's like really bad. Um,
Actually, we know about it because we
oh,
had
really?
yeah, we have a similar thing in Europe, which was the Albanian
Oh, right,
cannabis,
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was
We,
a certain place that, this was the same thing like you had with the Mexican, I think,
oh,
Ins-
yeah, 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 yeah. Very, very much so. It's the Albanian is it actually, yeah,
because of
it's
the
about the
transport.
same.
The
It's about
transport was so bad, it was all seeded. It was bricks inside from roofs, to make it heavier. Like
yeah,
it
yeah,
smelled like fuel, gas. I mean, real because they
yeah.
transported it in these trucks, in the
Uh,
fuel.
we didn't have so much fuel smell, but we had, but we put rocks in the kilos. We put rocks in there, and also rocks. And I remember I found all kinds of. My favorite was lizards. Lizards. There was always lizards. You'd always find lizards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, always be running. Uh,
Shit.
and yeah. But we bought an ounce of that. It was like $10 US, cheap. And half of it was stems and seeds. And so we all went out in my car. There was four of us. We'd taken a pipe from my tobacco pipe from my father, and because there's no head shops, nothing, And so we all get in the car and start smoking cannabis, start passing this around. And finally, toward the end of the ounce, I got high. I mean, seriously high. And it was great. It was nothing like anybody had ever explained to me or anything. I mean, it was fucking wonderful. I couldn't get enough. I was driving the car and it was like I was in the movie. I was in a movie watching myself drive a car. It was the first major hallucination I had. And I loved it. I loved it. And yeah, that was well, that's what hooked me right there. And then there was a lot of things that happened then too, because, for example, people, adults that I respected, they would just buy into the drug war or war on drugs, and they wouldn't ask any questions. They just believe everything. They just swallow everything. And so what happens was, I thought, now look, if you guys are dumb enough to just believe something that somebody tells you, well, I can't really go along with that. And I like to do my own homework. And so I do my homework, and I find out that all the information comes from, like the anti-drug agency. So I think, okay. So what's the truth? What's going on? And so I figured the people that were saying the same things as everybody else, the what do you call them? The anti-drug guys. Those guys were just sheep, and they'll follow anybody. So heck with them. I can't really trust them. And then the people that do their homework, um, they're only reading one thing. You got to read everybody. You got to look at everything. And so I've just figured I was getting bad news, bad information straight away. And so I never bought into that drug war, and I never believed any of it. I mean, because it was pretty straightforward. It was a way to control people, and that's it. Yeah, so yeah. And then after that, that was in high school. And then for university, I went, I spent a year here in Spain and a couple other places, but I spent another year in Mexico. I went to Mexico, and that's when we got really, I got really into it. Because the first thing happens was, the el rector, the the rector of the university gives us a big speech and everything about cannabis and how bad it is and stuff. And then this guy says, "I'm going to go smoke a joint." Uh, and he walks right through, like right in front of everybody. I thought, "Well, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to go with him." And the next, I mean, I've been in Mexico like 48 hours. And then the next day, that's when I got bought my first kilo, kilo there. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, the next day, I got thrown out of school.
No, no, they wouldn't throw you out of school. You had to get, you had to be really bad to get thrown out of school. Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe, uh, no, I don't know anybody that was thrown out. Nobody's thrown out. They just look at things differently there. Yeah, and so I got really into it there, and stayed with it. And then when I graduated university, and I mean, I'll be darned, I didn't know what the hell else to do except to start growing. So that's what I did. That's what I did for a living. Well, actually, I had a garden business. I moved to Santa Barbara, California, and had a garden business. And then I grew part time up in the hills and stuff, and then did really well. I was first year, that was let's see, it's still in the 70s, mid 70s, yeah, mid 70s. But I grew for a couple years, made it made quite a bit of money, and then I bought a Volkswagen van and moved, and then took a road trip, went to South America in the Volkswagen, and that was it was okay until you got to Central America, because oh shit, that's when the Sandistas from El Salvador.
Was it Sandistas or Sandanistas?
Sandista, eso es,
Same.
Sandinista, eso es. Yeah, Sandinista, but when they were around, and I met these guys that said, they were driving through there, Central America, and the Sandanita stopped them, and they requisitioned their vehicle. They just took it off of them, basically, and they gave him a receipt. They gave him a receipt. And said,
You can have it back after the war.
yes, yeah, exactly. That's what happened. So, so I thought that was kind of a bad idea to continue there.
Mhm.
And so I sold the car in America and then went to got on the airplane and went to Chile because my business partner, had already gone down there. But my goal was to to do a lot of traveling, but um, to learn more about cannabis in South America. And I don't know, I was gone about 6 months, and we just there's so much other stuff to do. That's all, I mean, just kind of goofed off for the better part of 6 months. No, I guess no. Actually, I think I made it closer to a year. That's right. Yeah, because I wound up in the Amazon. That's right. Yeah, but anyway, when I got back to the United States.
Before you talk about the United States, did you make it to Argentina?
No, that
No.
Argentina, I didn't go, and I didn't. I went. I go to Chile and Bolivia, Peru. I didn't go to Ecuador, um, and then Colombia. I didn't go to until later. Till I spent quite a bit of time in Colombia here, the last few. Well, not the last couple years, but about 5 years ago, I spent quite some time there. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So you came back to the US?
Yeah, back to the U.S. and man, I'll tell you, everything changed. It was rough. That's what you remember campaign against
Yeah.
marijuana planting in Northern California,
Mm-hmm.
where see the big problem was with this. It's a frigging drug war or
But when
war
did
on
camp
drugs.
start?
Oh, I don't remember the year. I'm bad with all.
Because I thought camp was a little bit later than like some of your story.
Oh yeah, definitely later. It
Mm-hmm.
was quite a bit later.
Yeah, it was like in
But it
the
was
late 80s. This is when I
yeah,
think it
yeah. I was
began.
thinking because that's Tom Alexander
I
used to
didn't want to
cover
skip
'em.
over the Tom Alexander part, so that's why.
Yeah,
But anyway, go ahead. Talk about camp.
yeah. No, anyway, I moved. No, I started growing there, and then let's see. But yeah, basically, and then gosh, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and that's where I wrote the first marijuana horticulture book.
So was this before or after you were involved in Sensimilia Tips?
No, that was before. What I did is
Okay.
I wrote the marijuana horticulture or the indoor marijuana horticulture. I called it then because the only thing you could get a hold of was Steve Murphy's or Murphy Stevens's book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was a couple others, but they were pretty lightweight, and because there wasn't much information. So yeah, this one, that's and then the halide lights were all new, and they'd gone from mercury lamps to halide lights, and that was in the early 70s, and that's when all of this started. And there was just tons of really bad information. People just they didn't have a fucking clue of what was going on most of
Some
the time.
things never change, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much information now, and there's just not that much, or there wasn't that much at all. So that's when I decided to do the research. And see, I've been gardening my whole life, and I had the garden business for a couple of years. And even though I don't have a degree in horticulture or a hard science, even soil biology, uh, I know a lot about gardening. I mean, I'm just, hands on. So what I did is I went to all of the lighting companies. Let's see, there was Sylvania and Philips were the two big ones, and got all of their literature and found out everything I could, and then I put the two things together: information about lights, and then information about gardening. And then I'd been grown. I'd grown for by that time about 5 years. And so I put all of that information together. And then for me, I'll tell you, the smartest thing I did back then was to put a survey in there, a 10-word survey, or I mean a 10-question survey, and ask people what they wanted to know. I mean and then so I was able to tailor the book for the growers. Yeah, but that
Where was that survey published? How did people see the survey?
right in the book. It
Oh,
was right
in your
in the
first
book.
book.
Yeah, I'm still looking over here. Maybe I put it in an envelope or something. I don't know.
It's okay. I'll take a photo off of your website.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
few photos off your website, including you
Sure.
with dreadlocks.
Sure. Sure. No worries.
Hey, I want to quickly introduce you to Wolf. He's also
Wolf.
a co-host. He has his own show
Hi, George.
on our network as well, and
Okay.
he's really busy today, so he couldn't join us on time. But
Okay.
like I said, everybody wanted to have an opportunity to be involved in it, and like I said, to say thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
thank you so much for joining
Really
us.
nice. Yeah. No worries. No
So
worries.
anyway, you asked in your book, you put a survey in
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
ask people
and
what they wanted.
Yeah, and I remember. Let's see. Well, the survey served a couple of purposes. One is to find out what the audience wanted, and two, to find out what their knowledge level is, and their, I mean, like when you give a lecture, when you talk to people, you generally ask them what they know, so you know how to speak to them, so you can speak at this level, proper level. And yeah, I remember the last question on the survey was, "Did you, a thief or a policeman, harvest your crop?" And there's quite a bit about security and stuff there. But yeah, that was all old times, tough times. My family thought I was crazy. I had to have two sets of friends, people that knew, people that didn't. I felt, yeah, I mean, it was pretty hard on the head, going against the entire world like that. I kept people on my side, or, found people that were on my side, to legalize cannabis. But man, yeah, it was just hard times. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of times being paranoid. Um, and like I said, and I grew for a few years, so it was. I had to sell it. There's a lot of compo. There was one guy. Listen to this. There was one guy that shows up at my house. I wrote a letter to the editor in the Oregonian, and from that, people got a hold of my address and came to my house. Two
Oh
different
shit!
people. Oh yeah, this is really fucked up, man. This one guy shows up. He shows up. He's got a pickup truck, and it's covered with a tarp, right? And so what he had done is he'd read the book, grown about a ton of dope, and harvested it all, put it in his truck, and came over to my house
Yeah.
to figure out what to do with it.
Was it all wet still?
Yeah, it was all wet. And it reeked. It was like parked right in front of my house.
Anyway, so this guy showed up to your house with a
Yeah.
truckload full of fresh cannabis that he didn't know what to do with.
Yeah, about a ton. And he says, "Well, where can I sell this stuff?" I didn't even want to look at it. Yeah, no, I looked at it through the window, and it was like hanging out the tarp and stuff. And that, I mean, that's pretty. That would have been a big deal. The whole town would have known about it. Portland's about 500,000 people. That would have been that would have been bad news. God, just all little things, you know. What was another one? There was this other guy that came over, and I'm sure he was a narc because he wanted me to sell him some cannabis or tell him where he could find some. But those were the two ones that I recall. Yeah, but a lot of other things too. Like I was a member of the Publishers Association. Well, several of them in the Northwest, and people just hated me. Like some people liked me, but about half of them just fucking hated me. Just before they'd seen me or anything, and they would blame me for their children's problems. And you know, you got to be careful when they're like that. And you're in public, you know, because they're pretty upset. But one time I did say, "I ain't the kid's dad. You better look in the mirror, motherfucker." I just had it. I just had it. You know.
I'm still
Uh,
curious, how did they like find you like on the street? Did you have a photo of yourself in your original book? Were you not
no,
incognito
no,
like in the
no,
later ones?
no. They came to my house.
You said two people showed up to your house, but then you said that like people on the street would see you and blame you for their kids.
Oh, no, on the street, not on the street, in the publishers group. In the publishers group, yeah. That's where they, because I was very, very careful with the identity. That was, no, that's a kiss of death, man. You couldn't travel anymore. If you have a felony, you start running into trouble with traveling, and especially if you want to move, and it comes up every time. Well, shows up every time you cross a border. That's the big problem. So you go into the little room and you have the conversation about 10 different times with different people, and it's real unpleasant. Yeah, and then let's see, after that Hydro Farm got a hold of me and they wanted me to put a catalog in the back of the book. So that's what I did. I put a catalog in the back of the book, and we sold indoor garden equipment, and that worked really well.
And this
Um,
is the same Hydro Farm that I know?
yes, the
Wow,
one
I
there
didn't know
in
that part of the
San
story because
Rafael.
later on they became, well, San Rafael was Diamond Lights, right?
No, that was they started in
Oh, you're
San
right. Hydro Farm
Rafael.
was in San Rafael too.
Um,
But
Sir Francis Drake Boulevard.
yeah,
That's what they
they
were on.
became so paranoid about weed later on, you know, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Well,
interesting
they
that they
got
started
popped.
off.
They got popped in Green Merchant.
Hmm.
Yeah, they were one of the 106 stores or something. I can't. I got the stats here, uh, but one of the, I don't know, 80 stores, 40 stores. I can't remember that got popped. But about 120 of my friends went to jail. I know that.
That's why they made the change to be a little
Yeah,
bit more careful, I guess.
yeah, they were real paranoid for a while. But
Yeah.
it's understandable. It's your livelihood, and you could go to jail. Jail's not fun.
Like you said, people did go to jail.
Yeah, lots of them, lots of them. So there was that, and then after that, yeah, and then about a year after that, I opened a garden store in Portland, Oregon, and that went pretty well. But I'm really a shitty business person when it comes down to it. So I had a manager there that was quite dishonest, and he pretty much ran me into bankruptcy by not paying attention to this, that, and other thing, blah blah blah. So that was pretty rough. But I do remember before Green Merchant, I remember on two separate, well, no, three, four, five or six occasions, two different narcs came in. I remember them very well. I could probably, well, they're older now, but I could probably ID them still. Because,
So you said you had a garden store, but is
yeah,
this like what we would call a grow shop that
a
was
grow
like
shop. Yeah, yeah,
selling
it's a grow
selling
shop.
gear for cannabis growers? You weren't selling begonias and ferns.
I was gonna say
Yeah, I
because now in
sold
Portland
ferns.
there's
I
shops
sold a
that are
few
like that.
begonia. Yeah, I sold some shade plants, indoor plants. We had a
Okay.
greenhouse. Yeah, we sold other things. Sold a few um,
But your
orchids.
your focus in your
Oh, it
head
was
at least was cannabis.
100% cannabis, or should I say tomatoes? And
Tomatoes.
What
then,
was the name of the grow store?
uh, let's see. Oh, Northwest. Yeah, Northwest Garden Center.
Northwest Garden Center. And about
Yeah,
what year was this?
yeah, and that was. Geez, oh, I hope I wrote that down. Um, that was early seven or early 80s. Early
Okay.
80s. Let me see if I can find a copy of my this straight book. Here it
Okay.
is. Now, what I did here. This is the newest edition of this book, the marijuana horticulture. But I took this book here, sanitized it, and made this book.
Some of the
Nice.
photos in that book are from my shop.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All
Dope.
color, printed in China. But yeah, that's right. They are from your shop. Well, that's
You were taking product pictures at my store.
yeah, exactly. Uh,
You still owe me a check.
for
Like,
what? But this book did quite well actually, because it was for the employees. The employees could read it and know what to do, know how to help clients, and then clients could read it and have a good idea, and it gave people something to talk about, different types of tomatoes. Except, the the funny thing is, cannabis has got some really unique characteristics, like some of
Gmail,
them.
ML.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's yeah, dioecious, big deal, and it also it's a short day plant, so it flowers. There's only a few, okay, like poinsettias, Napa cabbages, Chinese cabbage, they call them also. And let's see, Christmas cactus, those are, and cockleburrs. There's a bunch of plants that are short day plants, right? So you kind of have to. I'm glad the cops didn't read these things because yeah, I mean, if you read this, I mean, it'd be
But the
really
thing is,
easy
you'd
to
have to
figure
know a
out
little
what was
something
going
about
on.
marijuana to know that in the first place, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So even if they
Yeah, you
read it,
would.
they probably wouldn't have a clue.
Did it like talk about flipping your tomatoes to 1212?
Oh, no, I have to change. That is good though. Yeah, I have to change. I have to change plants for that. But not a lot of people grow poinsettias. I mean, they'll get them. They'll get them in the winter, and grow them for Christmas. But that's it. But anyway, so this one did really well. Did really well, but I get these phone calls, or not phone calls, but letters, and later I would get emails that would say, "Hey Jorge, there's this guy named George Van Patten, and he's been ripping off your stuff. You better, I mean, there's a big copyright violation there." And I write back and say, "Oh, that's so bad, blah, blah, blah." But it was a good joke. We had a fun time with it.
You know what's funny about that, Jorge, is I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about you, and he called. I don't know if he called you George, because we were actually talking about Bill Ross.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Ross.
yeah, and so Ross always called you George, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
I've known you for over 20 years. I still don't know what your fucking name is. I don't know.
Uh,
You're still
no,
that guy with the sunglasses and dreadlocks, as far as I'm concerned. You
yeah.
know,
That's
the, we can keep it that way if you want. I just wanted you to know that
well.
I thought it was funny. Oh,
Actually, most people keep it that way. That because my given name George Van Patten, one on
that
my
is your given
passport.
name?
Yes.
Okay, so now the facts are out that your name is
Yeah.
George Van. I kind of thought Cervantes might not be your last name, but
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. Cervantes. No. Oh yeah, I was talking about gardening indoors,
the
and then
book.
and then later came Green Merchant. Green Merchant. Were you around for Green Merchant, or did you
I
come
was not.
afterward?
I actually started growing right after Merchant. So like
Yes.
when I met Bill, he was super paranoid because they had just come to his place and give him a whole bunch of shit. But before we talk about Green Merchant, I think one step, like I said, I don't want to forget talking about somebody that I know is dear to the two of us is Tom Alexander, and you
Oh
were
yes.
involved in Sensimilia Tips, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Actually, yeah. I mean,
And Michael Wolf
Alex.
Siegel says hello as well.
Oh, okay. Cool. Hey, Wolf. Yeah.
He recorded with us as well.
Oh, cool. 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 Yeah. The thing is with well, given name Tom Alexander, I always call him Alex because, well, that's what I call him. But anyway, yeah,
Hmm.
we spent a lot of time together, lots of time together. We would go to the the national book fairs, and we were always like the crazies, the crazies of the book group. Because see, we were in small press, and small press back then, they were growing really fast, and they were quite a force to be reckoned with. And we had our own, well, yeah, small press, and it was just smaller presses, but a lot of leftists and a lot of alternative people and stuff that we would hang out with. And then we will also have the party suite. We would pull all our money, get it, and get a suite. Alex and I would do that. We get a suite, and then we'd always bring lots of dope, and we were quite popular. Everybody would show up at the suite, but we usually get, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 70 or 80 people. Ken Kesey showed up one time. That was really good. Yeah, that was nice. That was a hit. Who but yeah, fun time. And anyway, we spent all kinds of time. We went to trade shows probably for 20 years. 20 years, yeah. And that it was rough times because there's a bunch of people that hated us, and but most of the people liked us because see, book world is pretty liberal. Even librarians, everybody, you think it'd be very conservative. They're not at all conservative. I think people should be able to express themselves. But yeah, we spent tons of time together. He moved out here from Connecticut. From Connecticut, yeah. And stayed at the farm. In fact, he'd be a good idea, or a good guy to interview.
Oh,
Stayed at the
it's already in the works.
good, good, good. Yeah, he stayed at the farm, which was
Ken
oh,
Kesey's farm.
Stephen Gaskin, uh, excuse me?
I asked you if it was Ken Kesey's farm.
No, no. Ken Kesey was in Eugene, Oregon.
Right.
This was oh, what's his name? Gaskin, Stephen Gaskin, and he was in Tennessee, and they called it the farm. Yeah, it was the biggest commune at the
Well,
time.
those guys are still there.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my employees is like part of that family, and he actually, or one of my ex-employees, he actually, like I think it was like 5 or 10 years ago, he went back, so that they're still there.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Because Stephen passed away like 5, 6, 7 years ago now.
I know he went back there like 10 years ago. Hope that I don't know what happened if he had to leave because if they closed because he died or something, but they definitely
Yeah.
existed 10 years ago.
Cool. 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 Yeah, because I knew Stephen from the High Times. He would go to the High Times fair, the Cannabis Cup. That was the biggest thing happening. Oh yeah, and then way back. This was early on, right after I published the book, um, or not within 6 months, 6 months a year. Neville was selling seeds out of the seed bank in out of the Netherlands, and he'd already set up the cannabis castle and stuff. So I spent a lot of time there. I would fly over to Netherlands regularly, um, 3 or 4 times. Well, yeah, 4 times a year probably for about 5 or 6 years. Yeah, that was early on, early on. Um, and I also helped Neville uh, get some different cannabis seeds, like what was it?
You brought him
Uh,
genetics from the U.S.
Well, no, I didn't bring them. I figured since I was not making any money, I will put people together, but I'm not gonna traffic anything because that's the way you can't write. You go to jail, you can't write. You can't share any information. You
Hmm.
got to stay able to work. Um, yeah, so what did we get? The G13 and one of the Afghanis, because there's basically four genotypes of Afghani. And Big Bud was the other one. Yeah, and Big Bud, that's like a main breeder now. And they changed all the names and stuff. Yeah, and that's when I smoked the haze for the first time, and it's was my favorite, and it still is. I love haze; it's the absolute best. Um, yeah, but over there, God, and it was really interesting the castle because what he did, he Neville did, and he passed away. God, 4 years now. 4 years ago,
It's like
he's from Perth,
2019.
Australia. Yeah, but anyway, he had started. Well, what he he made a lot of money dealing hash, and that's when he got into the breeding because he knew how to breed canaries. He learned all about breeding in Australia and the guy is really smart, really smart, good science background too. And he goes and he buys over in Nijmegen, which is right next to Germany. He goes and buys right on the Wall River, right on this great big old house, and they used to call it the big house by the dike. That's right, across the river from Nijmegen. And then and then because and the house was from about 1820s 1810 1820. So all those old houses have a big stable down below. The basement is usually a stable for the horses to stay. So what he did is he made in the different stables, he made different breeding rooms, and then he got a jackhammer and made ditches everywhere in the floor, jackhammered up the concrete. So he made a maze of ditches and then a low place where he put a sump pump. So he would, and then he got the rock wool, the slabs cut them into short pieces, and then got a seal-a-meal to cover them with plastic. So he would have these little pots like this high of Grodan, rock wool, and then that way he could move his plants all over the place. But it was very, very efficient, real simple, very, very quite Dutch. Yeah, but actually, Neville's from Australia. He left Australia because he had a legal problem. Legal problems. Seem like we all get legal problems sometimes. Yeah, but I spent tons of time with him, and that was a real education. Great times, great times. We spent a lot of time in Amsterdam back then. That was the only place you could go. And then I remember I went back to High Times. There was one of the writers that was working for High Times, I won't mention, but that was going to Netherlands all the time, and he said that Neville wouldn't talk to anybody but him. I thought, well, that kind of sounds funny. So, so I thought I called him up on the phone because his phone number was in the High Times. I called Neville up and I started asking him questions, and he says, "Yeah, mate, come on over, hang out." So that's what I did. I went over and hung out, and yeah, learned tons from him. In fact, there's photos from his original, Cannabis Castle in my books. Yeah, that was quite a time. God, I think about, the old days, the old days. It's like, see, this, you gotta remember, this is like 40 years ago. I mean, I say that, I can't friggin' believe it myself,
So
Um,
long.
yeah, my friends are dying, we're all old. Hell, I'm 71 years old, you know?
Jorge, you look great, buddy.
Oh,
You know,
man.
one question that I had for you is like, you're 71 years old. How do you have that beautiful hair? I mean,
Oh, yeah, I
look
got
at me,
lucky,
bro.
huh?
Look what's happened to me.
Well, that's a genetic
When I
function.
met you, my hair was down to my rear, and
Yeah,
now, like
it's the same.
We got to get some pictures of Gabby with long hair.
Yeah, good idea. Good
uh,
idea.
there's a
But
We
couple.
yeah,
need to get Gabby that those dreads that you had.
oh,
That
right,
picture is the
right.
best. This is gonna have to be the like cover shot of our video right here. I love that.
Oh,
That is
yeah. Well, see, I did those. I came up with those because of High Times. High Times wanted me to shoot because I'd moved up to. Oh hell, I forgot about this. I moved up to BC, Canada, and was living in Langley, which is just right out, or not Langley, but the hell's the name of that town? It's just the first suburb on the highway south of Vancouver. I'll think of it in a minute.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, I was up there a couple of years, or not quite 2 years, and yeah, that was got a real education up there. That's when everybody was growing up there. That was when was that the 90s? I don't know. It all blends together after a while. Um, yeah, I spent yeah, but anyway, we High Times wanted to do a video, and so we shot the first video up there. Uh, Jorge Cervantes, Ultimate Grow. Here we go. I got them right here. There was three of them.
Look at this one. That's your
Yeah,
photo
yeah,
from your.
that's the book. Yeah, but ultimately I did three videos with High Times.
Oh wow.
And yeah, yeah, but these were the only, and then they pirated these all over YouTube. Um, and that was really a good deal because that's got me out or my name out all over the world. Yeah, but the reason I came up with that disguise was so I could shoot this video and people wouldn't see my face. Because like I say, it was still pretty spooky times back then. But Canada, everything was wide open, so that was quite different. But yeah, up there, I went over and hung out one night at the Hells Angels clubhouse. Yeah, that was kind of a trip. And the Angels are real big up there. And then yeah, lots of stuff, lots of stuff. Um, I guess it's so long it's not incriminating. But anyway, there's just some stuff well,
I
I
think
don't
you
know.
should tell the
I
stories
don't know a lot.
incriminating because I promise you that law enforcement doesn't care anymore.
They don't. Well, that's good. No, I'm trying not. Well, no, I never smuggled back and forth across the border, knowingly. I mean, maybe a mistake or something. It wasn't like I was planning on moving loads and stuff. Not like that. I'd move them inside the U.S. That was like normal. In the 70s, the mid 70s. That's yeah. I was mid to late 70s. I was moving loads up and down the coast all the time. That was
What was your closest call?
uh, breaking down on the highway. Breaking down I had a Volkswagen bus, uh, and I was sleeping in it. So the car broke down, and I was sleeping in it, and the cop came by to ask me if I was okay. And that was pretty close.
How much do you think you had
Oh
with
yeah,
you?
no, I forgot about growing. Another time when I was growing when you're in Santa Barbara, up San Isidro Canyon. It's just south of Santa Barbara in Montecito. Um, what had happened? I had a clandestine garden up there and was growing. It was pretty good size. I had a pump and everything. I had to go up there early in the day and pump water and stuff. It was because nobody should be able to hear it. You don't want a pump going off out in the middle of nowhere. And one time the Forest Service, somebody got lost up there, and they were reporting them, and they thought I was the lost guy. So, yeah, so I was coming back down. I had a bunch of dope on me, right? So I'm coming back down this trail. I think everything's cool, and the next thing I know, there's this damn helicopter over me, and they're following me and stuff. So, I mean, I could see the guy look at me. I thought, dang, that's not good. Uh, they probably know, I mean, because it's easy, everybody's paranoid. So, or I was paranoid. And anyway, what happened was, I hid. I went and hid under there was a big rock, and I went and hid, and I hid all my dope and everything and stuff. And then I come down, and then I walk down, and I meet these guys from the Forest Service, and I thought, okay, well, this is it. I mean, I better be real casual here. And they asked me if I'd seen anybody else up there, and that's when I figured out they were looking for somebody else, not me. And that was spooky though, because I didn't know any
But
different.
they were gonna go near your garden. That's like while they're looking for this guy, they could have stumbled across where you were growing.
Yeah, it would have been hard. It would have been, yeah, that's true.
It would have
It,
taken some effort.
yeah, it would have taken some effort. Yeah. No, I had several layers of security for sure. Yeah, yeah, several layers. But anyway, that worked really well. And that actually the second crop I pulled out of there was great because that's when the price went from $500 a pound to to $1,200 a pound. And yeah, from 1 year to the next, that's more than double, right? 2.5 times as much. Oh, so I
Do you
did
know what
very
year that
well.
was?
Huh?
Do you know
Uh,
what year that was?
78, 78, 79,
What
79.
what sort
Right
of
now,
layers of security were you using?
Uh, One of the things I do is it's always you put duct tape on the bottom of your shoes so they can't match you with the shoes. They can't match you with the footprints, and they can't say it was you, and you have to take it off every time. So you gotta have that duct tape on you, which is kind of it's a little iffy that. And then another thing is I would take the branches and well, first you have to find a sunny location, and then you have to find a place where you can pull the branches over the cannabis, so it doesn't look like there's a square cut out of the brush there. And yeah, that's yeah, and so you have to plant plants in several different places, and in order to water, it might take, 20 minutes to water just because you have to walk several places. Yeah. So, but that was the security. I tried setting up a camera. They didn't have anything decent back then. It would have been crazy. And then I don't know. You'd had to develop the film. But those were the main things. And then the other security thing was doing everything. I would have to go up there. I had to haul up there, PVC pipe, cut it in 10-foot sections, and you look pretty conspicuous with white pipes, yeah, and hose, a pump. That was heavy.
Were you like
Things
pulling water from a nearby
from a
stream
creek.
or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. There
Yeah.
was a creek. There was San Isidro Creek. And fortunately, it runs all year. I don't know if it does still, but it
Hmm.
did back then. Yeah. But anyway, that's time passed. Time passed. I think people just don't realize how difficult things were back then. Yeah. And then where? What did we do? What did I do next? Let me see here.
Well, one thing I can say while you're looking for the next phase in your life was I thought it was really funny that you said that you were really paranoid.
Yeah.
And something that I wanted to bring up is that paranoia is something that people always said, yeah, when I paranoid. But I wonder if that's just because of the illegality of it, right? Like people don't get paranoid when they're drinking a beer, because
Yeah.
it's not illegal.
Unless you're
So
like 18 or 17 and drinking a beer at a party and the cops show up.
right. That,
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's
I don't think I don't think
right.
weed makes you paranoid. I think the illegality of it makes you paranoid.
Uh,
Well, I
def-
don't know. I'd argue that there's social
Yeah.
aspects to it too. There's been times where hanging out with friends, get super stoned, and you're like, oh my god, like are they talking shit on me? Like what the hell are they talking about? And like you start spiraling out, and
Yeah, but
I
I
mean,
think I think you think that when you're straight. I think you are. You know what the deal is? You're actually paranoid, and it has nothing to do with the weed.
I don't
weed
know.
just
Well, it's
brings
hard to
out
tell
your
because I've
true
just been
paranoia.
stoned for like 20 years, so
well, you can have
So
light of hallucinations and stuff. It may have something to do with it. So I remember one time, well, like for example, those Dutch guys, for example, they never get paranoid. They never get paranoid when they're growing, when they're around it and stuff, because it doesn't have the same penalties that it does in or didn't that had in America. But nobody that I knew ever got paranoid. And then one time, though, I have to say, uh, who was it? Alan Dronkers, Ben's son, from Cincy Seeds.
mhm.
He said, "Yeah, I've heard about this paranoia and stuff." And he says, it almost happened to me one time. I felt a little bit, and then he said, he goes, I just smoked another joint and went away.
Next time, Cosmic, take that advice. If you get paranoid, just smoke another
Just
joint to
smoke
go.
more.
Actually, Jorge, the thing is that in Slovenia, for example, now it's still illegal the cannabis, right? But it's so much used now. It's so much used. I said in one podcast that it's the most tolerant country to cannabis in the world, maybe right now, because it's been used also for not only for recreational but also for medical. Well, people make this Rick Simpson oil for many years now. So it doesn't matter what kind of perspective on life you have. When you have a garden, which many people do, they grow cannabis, and they never smoked a joint, but they grow it and they make oils from that. And it's like a movement. It's like a big, big part of it. It's also why it will be legalized maybe soon. Maybe also because US will maybe go federal. Maybe Germany now because it started to legalize or decriminalize it. So but you hit the point when you said that the Dutch guys never get so paranoid. Because the penalties in Europe for this was not big. You don't go to jail just growing few plants.
Yeah, no,
It's never gonna happen. It's like no way. It would be, but that's how actually my theory is that craft cannabis breeding is much more in USA developed because of you did not have this access. We could get seeds from Holland very, very easily, because we're in Europe. But you had this border, between US and Europe had this really, DAA searched all they had a system. I mean, it's a very, very, very different perspective. But we still have a lot of illegality. Many states are still illegal many countries in Europe are illegal. Like I know you live in Spain, right, Jorge?
right.
Can you tell a little bit how you decided to move to Spain or when? Maybe if I'm not jumping too far.
No, just excuse me. One, oh, let's see. Yeah, I spent a year here when I was in university. I went to university in Valencia, and which is the third largest city in Spain. It's on the Mediterranean, and that was in the early 70s. And so uh, I had more freedom here than I did in my own hometown. Um, and that always stuck with me. And when I moved here, I've been here about 25, well, yeah, 25 years. I've been here
Wow.
25 years. So back then, California was the only place that was legal, 98, right? So, or 96, 96, 98, I can't remember. Anyway, uh, yeah, here it's tolerated. It's tolerated. It's kind of like a little overwhelming. A lot of people moved here from all over Europe to start growing, which is kind of a problem. Because the Albanians are here. That's a big problem because they
Mhm.
have like pretty, those guys are the roughest mafia there is in the world. I'm convinced. But yeah, because I met with the police and stuff to find out how we could work together. They said no, we can't work together. They don't want to help me at all. Uh, and we couldn't get pictures I couldn't get pictures with them or anything. But yeah, the thing is, here we've got well, it used to be La Ley Corcuera, and then it's Mulasa is the different law or the newest one. But basically, it's tolerated. You can have small quantities for personal use. You can grow, and it depends on which part of Spain you live in. I live in Catalonia or Catalunya, and here is liberal. quite liberal, just like it is in the Basque Country. And yeah, so here we don't have much problem. You don't want to smoke it in front of the cops or anything because you get a ticket. 300 euros, 300 to 600 euros for your first offense. And yeah, it's kind of a pain. Oh, and those cops now, listen to this, they've got those electric motorcycles. You can't hear the bastards coming.
Oh shit.
And they're
Oh no,
fast.
it's really rough. And you know, you'd be just like it's just there all of a sudden,
Oh
you
my
know.
God.
Anyway, but we've got smoking clubs here or private clubs, and the club you can have any kind of a club you want, but some of the things you can't do or advertise. Can't advertise your club or advertise the cannabis or have a front window. You're supposed to have everything closed and not have a sign on the front door. But you can look a lot of people up on the internet, so you know it doesn't really matter that way.
You
And then
just search for Cannabis Club Barcelona.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's it, and that's it, and you'll find them. But two, you've got to have national ID to be able to go in. Some clubs make exceptions. I mean, it was like the Wild West for about about 5 years. Things happen slowly here.
So if I go there now, they don't let me in?
You come over and hang out, and I'd take you to a club. I can always get people in.
Oh no, but like
What
just
day?
like your average American tourist, would they be able to go into one of these clubs?
Pardon?
Would like an average American tourist be able to go into one of these clubs, or do you need to have some sort of local
You're
connect
supposed to have
to bring you in?
local ID, and but there's several clubs that break all the rules.
Right.
But I mean, because see, there was another one. These guys, where in the heck were they from? From Central Europe somewhere. I never went over there, but they had like 20,000 members because you
Whoa.
have to sign up, and you're only supposed to have like 150. Uh, yeah, so I had like 20,000 members, and they were moving some real poundage out of there. I mean, some serious kilos. And tourists, everybody, they have people would go to tourist areas and recruit tourists to go over there. Yeah, that it was pretty wild for a while. And that's when Spannabis had started, or well, Spannabis was going pretty good, been going about 10 years, 10, 12 years. And somebody got the great idea to, because when all of the sieves came out for separating and making the ice hash, they would at Spannabis, you could go in there, you could take in like 10 pounds of dope in the front door, give it to these guys at one of the stands. They would separate it. They'd run the tumbler all night, or had a bunch of it separated, and they would take 25% for doing that, and then they would give you just a chunk of hash back. And that lasted 1 year, and then they can't do that anymore. But yeah, here Spannabis used to be the biggest trade fair in the world, and then Las Vegas took it over. Now it's Germany. But like I said, it's cannabis is tolerated here. We've got a very old hash culture. Morocco's just right across the Strait of Gibraltar. So yeah, and I remember when I first got here, actually it was they have well, they sell several, lots of different grades of hash. But Katama is just right over there in the Rif Mountains in Morocco. Um, but they have they would package it usually in 100 gram plates, placas, they call them placas 100 gramos, and then they will put a stamp on it. And the double zero stamp was usually is the highest grade in general. And you can go in November. Oh, that's the best month because they have the cream. You can get, yeah, I see, I see Slovenian. Yeah,
Yeah,
about
it's the
this.
pollen, you know. I smoked, I mean, I've been to Andalusia a lot and to Barcelona. I go every year, you know. I have a
Yeah,
lot of friends in Spain, a lot, you know.
yeah,
So I really know what you're talking about, you know.
yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
know, years ago, I took bubble bags with me to Spain, you know, because we
Oh, yeah,
used to make hash with that, you know, the bubble hash. This was in 2005 or something, you know, or four, you know. And these Andalusians, you know, they were showing me their inner gardens, you know, in the houses, because all of them were weed growers, indoor, outdoor, everything, you know. So there was a lot of cannabis, but still they told me that there is so much hash, but just flower is just in the season when they had a little bit of flower, you know.
yeah,
More or less, it was all hash culture in the
yeah,
third or fourth generation already, right?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. No, for them to make the transition from hash to cannabis, that took about 10 years.
Mhm.
Because now cannabis is more popular than hash here. But it took a long time because you could go get your beyota, they call it 10 grams. 10 grams, they usually call it an acorn. Yeah, 10 grams, but you can buy and the best hash is the is el culero, hashir culero. Uh,
Coming from the ass.
Culero, well, you guys, I mean, it's pretty gross, but they take the 10-gram pieces and wrap them up in cellophane or plastic wrap, anything, and then swallow them, and you can. Average person, here's important stats. Average person can get about a kilo, 2.2 pounds in their stomach, and all the way up to about here. It's gonna come up to here.
Oh
And
my God.
then after that, 200 grams up the butt.
A double decker.
Takes 3 days sitting in a
So,
bathtub to get rid of that stuff, to pass all of it.
so I have a question for you, Jorge. It sounds like you have experience. Are you a culero?
No, no, no. Nunca he pasado la frontera. I've never been across the border with culero hash.
Maybe just
I don't. 3 days in a bathtub, though, man.
That's crazy.
Lots of water, and you have to hang on a bar and like so it'll go down.
okay. I think you've officially told the best story ever told on the show.
Can you describe the what you were talking about, the crema, or if you
La
make it
crema?
to,
The
or
cream.
the cream, the stuff that was
Creamy.
like the really nice stuff.
They call it butter. It's
That's like the blonde
well,
shit.
yeah, not
Yeah.
so
Right.
not so but it's soft and pliable because it's new. It's
Hmm.
new, and you don't, but you only get it right then because otherwise it gets oxidized and stuff. But this is more of a blonde color, and it's pliable. It's pliable like that. And a little bit, it's not like, a lot of times you figure the hash will be hard like your phone. Um, but yeah, and then it's got a consistency. You use a knife to cut it, always a hot knife. And yeah, it's it can be sticky. It depends on the quality as far as the stickiness goes. Um, and if you're lucky, it won't have too much like camel shit smell because camel shit.
Because they made the camels eat it too.
No, I don't know
They
about
tweak
that.
it.
I don't think they'd waste it like that. I wouldn't. I, I wouldn't give a camel my dope.
What
I don't
was
know.
your
I think I'd
favorite?
rather a camel do the smuggling for me than me. So I don't know. I'm gonna catch some heat for that.
Oh, right, right. They probably have a way bigger stomach.
And a way bigger asshole.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You probably, oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. Bring over a camel. Now, who's going to bring over a camel? That'd be kind of, you'd have all that documentation and stuff.
You got to have a vet on call.
Yeah, they probably want to quarantine him for a while. That's
Oh my
bad luck,
God.
you know?
No, it's fucked up. We shouldn't talk about that. That's animal abuse.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I did a video on it, Culero.
Yeah,
It's just
we'll put a link.
Culero. Yeah,
We'll
but
put a link on
you
the
know,
bottom of the show notes.
yeah, it's on my my YouTube channel.
We will
Yeah,
put
God.
all of your links in the description to the podcast so people can
Okay.
find your legit stuff, not just the counterfeit.
My buddy over in Russia did this, but it's they pirated it in Russia, and dubbed it. They got a professional dub artist to overdub it, and they didn't put what do you call it, subtitles on it. Yeah, so I was pretty impressed, you know, even though they took it. But I know it's hard as hell over in Russia. All of those guys, you know, I mean, I got a lot of Russian friends. I mean, there's good guys, some really good guys. Some other ones, pretty tough guys. They're kind of funny, but yeah, it's well, it's important to get the information out. But yeah, I'm actually quite big in Russia. Here, I'll show you this. Oh, here, I got these now. Here it is. I didn't see it. Look
Oh,
at that.
it's in
I saw
Cyrillic.
Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, I have no idea what language that is.
It's
Russian.
Russian. Here's another one. This was
It's
Chinese
a
or
Chinese, man.
Japanese.
Japanese, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like on the Russian one
one?
that it shows you just pointing to a giant cannabis plant. Like, you know, we'd miss it if you weren't pointing it out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
here's the other mugs. And then this is the original book that I printed myself.
Wow,
And it's
a
96
relic.
pages. Oh man, you got it. I
That's
mean,
really cool.
I did the artwork myself. It's not very good. It was more. But this book, actually, yeah, this book did its first year it sold 6,000 copies, and that's just in the Northwest, and that's pretty darn good.
That's without bookstores selling it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like you said, everybody hated you.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was just it was too
How were
dangerous.
you getting it like marketed? How did you get it like the word out that you had this book at that time with no one wanting to carry it?
I got in my car, drove around all the head shops, and would sell them. And then I most usually had to leave them on consignment because nobody believed that it would sell, because they didn't know what the hell's going on. And yeah, that's what I did. And then so it took, and then also I had two distributors on the West Coast, Homestead Books and from Seattle, and was owned by a good friend of mine, David Tatelman, and then the other one was Last Gasp of San Francisco, Ron Turner down there, and those guys would also distribute to head shops and some bookstores, but not the
Cool.
mainstream bookstores. So
What
yeah,
year was that, and how much were you selling it for?
this was 1983, and I was selling this for 8.95.
Wow.
8.90, yeah, 8.95, and I printed it on a multi-lith press, and stapled it, all this stuff. It was so much work. But I guess it panned out after a while. I mean, people needed the information.
How much of that information do you think is transferable to today's growing culture?
Except for the life, pretty much all of it. I mean,
Awesome.
plant's been growing the same for the last, millennia. Um, some stuff doesn't change. Gravity's still the same as it used to be, but
Yeah.
there's more precise information now. There's more specific information on nutrients. Nutrients were the big thing. Everybody, they've got the best nutrients, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's where all the money was. It costs about a nickel or 5 cents to make a gallon of fertilizer that you can sell for $30 or $40 or more. So that's a pretty good markup, and
And
that's
it's a
why there was so
consumable.
information. Yeah, and it's a consumable, right? And then
Yeah. So Phil from Kenomic, when I told him you were going to join the show, he said, "Oh, that's exciting. Ask him for me if he could make a single revision to his famous nutrient chart, what would it be?" And I just think it's funny that, we asked the question and you said that that's what had changed was nutrients. But would you make a revision to your chart?
you mean the excesses and deficiencies. It could be these here. This is the older book. And then I made a newer one in the encyclopedia, which is here. And there's a series of drawings like this.
Right.
Yeah, I think he could be referring to these, the nutrient. I would just tighten them up a little bit. There's more information. I'd interview more people, but everything's correct. This is all
It's funny,
correct.
those nutrient photos, the photos that show deficiencies, that was all we had as cultivators.
Yeah,
Like back in the day, when you couldn't talk to people about this, there was no internet. And with that book, we'd look at our plant and be like, is that nitrogen deficiency or is it calcium deficiency? And yeah, like I said, so many growers would love to just chime in right now and say, thank you for that book. It was just amazing. And if you came out with a new book, we had to buy it.
yeah,
Just, you know, I purchased every edition that you put out during my growing career. So,
yeah, yeah. There a lot of people have because it's the only place you could find the information.
can I be so bold as to make a suggestion for your next book?
Sure.
So something that I learned, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, it should have been a lot longer, is because we've always been using your book and those diagrams to tell us what the nutrient deficiency. What it doesn't address is what a combination of nutrient deficiencies would look like. And
Yeah,
so
that's really hard. That's really hard because
right, but the point is that people
um,
too often look at the book and they say, "Oh, this is what it is." But now you can send leafs out for analysis. And the leaf
right.
analysis is going to show you something very different than that book is going to show you.
Oh yeah, well because you've got a combination of different nutrients.
Right.
What I can do here, if you read the text, a lot of times this is confused. Calcium, for example, I'm looking at that entry now. It's confused with lots of things, so that's quite important. What it's confused with: root disease, excess nitrogen, ammonium, magnesium, potassium. There's not enough pages in a book to show pictures of
Oh,
all possible
no,
combinations.
I don't think you could. I just want people to know that, like, for instance, let's say you have nitrogen and calcium deficiency. Okay, because they're both confused. You could actually have both deficient. When you add calcium, unless it's calcium nitrate, maybe that would solve the problem because you'd be giving it calcium and nitrogen. You may not be addressing the problem. So, particularly on a commercial scale, when the farmers can afford to do it, I always tell people that they should be doing leaf analysis their entire crop, at
Yeah,
least
good
the
idea.
first couple of times, so that they can figure out what's going on. And, there's a lot of arrogance in growers, and they look at it and go, oh, that's a calcium deficiency. But that arrogance, it slows them down. And like I said, luckily now we have testing. We have tools available that we didn't have.
That's right. Actually, in America, they don't test that much uh, for genetics, is what I think. They could be testing a lot more when you talk about arrogance uh, and growers, breeders, quote unquote. It does tell you that before it goes into before it goes into each one of the explanations of each one of the nutrients, that 99% of the times these happen together. These nutrient
I guess I
deficiencies
haven't
happen
read the
together.
book in long enough, or I don't have the most latest copy.
I could
So,
see the future of this too, utilizing AI. AI is being utilized in a lot of medical testing, for
Oh,
cancer screening especially, but
right.
potentially someone could create an app where utilize the phone's camera, take a picture of the leaf, and then it can analyze it using AI to, say this is the possible causes of whatever you're seeing on your leaf.
Apple already has that on my Apple Watch, or I mean my Apple computer. Let's see, I'll find a plant picture. But it'll identify plants.
the thing is, it needs the data first to input that.
The thing I did is I've been making books, all kinds of books. I got 11 languages. I had the first good Dutch. Marijuana Binnen is here. I had the first one, Marijuana Binnen, first good yeah, Noel Van Schaik. Did a lot. I did a lot of straight books, vegetables, hydroponics. Um, Oh yeah, here's another one. The the Hells Angels, from the really rough guys. They're the ones from Laval, Canada. It's a suburb of Montreal, and they're the generally considered the roughest bunch there is because they're tough guys. Anyway, they pirated one of my books. They pirated the Bible, yeah. And so I called him up. I got the phone number, called him up, and the conversation ended like, "Fuck you! Whoa, fuck you! Whoa, fuck you! Come over here and say that! Fuck you!" And anyway, that was pretty much the end of it. I tried to sue him, but then you had to collect the money, and the lawyer wants to get paid first, so I couldn't do anything. So this is what I did. This was my revenge. What I did is I went to China and I made the book uh, color, full color. And what that did is it made it too expensive for them to steal. And so I look at it as like, yes, it was really a good thing. I'm so glad they took the book. I'm very happy. Yeah, but I've done a lot of other ones. German. That was a biggie. That's done real well. I've done outdoor books, indoor
Do
books,
you speak
French.
German?
No, no, it's a hard one to learn. It's a hard one if you don't learn it from when you're young. And so many Germans speak English.
We're
Or
trying to find some uh, European people to do the podcast with Sasha, and Germany is huge right now, so we're hoping.
oh yeah, Vincent Weed is really a good guy. He's
Mhm.
he's like number one. He's a great guy. Great guy. There's tons of interest now in Germany. The market went up really high and then it went down. We'll see what happens in the future. They sure had a big fair this year, though, or last year. It was last year. Did you go Slovenian?
No, until now, Mary Jane, I will go this year. I will go to Mary Jane.
Good.
But friends of mine are going there. I'm going to Barcelona every year, you know. This is
Oh
for
yeah,
me.
good.
But now Germany, because it's legalized, I mean, I've definitely, and I sell to Germany clones, you know. I'm selling, just today went out 5, 6 packages of clones for German market, you know, because home growers can buy genetics now, you know. It's opened up. Yeah, it's a limit, 5 plants a person I can send,
Yeah.
but yeah, the market is open, and the beautiful thing is that I, as a producer, I have a really exotic library, you know, for the market, because Austria is a big market for this. So if you don't have your own selections, your own connections that gave you genetics, then you cannot compete on the market. Because
Okay.
if you just have few old cuts that everybody else has, you know,
Hmm.
it's like, you know, you have to be able to compete on the market. That is for sure. In any cannabis business, I think, you know, you have to be able to be smart and to change with time. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Huh. Huh. So those guys. So you're shipping them out of Austria then?
Yeah, I'm shipping out of Austria
Yeah.
over normal express mail.
Wow. That's good. And they don't get well. There's.
I have a European passport also for that. So that means that you get checked once a year by the governmental official. You know, it's called AGES, and they make tests and they see if everything is all right, and then they give you the passport for next year again. You know, so that's yeah, it's a system.
Thing. Yeah, Austria has really turned out to be a good place. I got other friends that are quite productive there.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
So, I just want to make sure we did, and it was totally cool, but we skipped forward a little bit, and I wanted to find out if you had any more stories from the 80s.
Stories,
Around it, we
stories.
mentioned Tom Alexander a little bit, but I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that you mentioned your time at Sensimilia Tips.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wrote for Seen Simia Tips. I didn't, it was Alex's magazine. He started it and it was his 100%. And he was in business about 10 years before Green Merchant happened, because Green Merchants is, uh, well, that's what shut him down because all of his advertisers quit. They were out of business. And that's when he started Growing Edge. Yeah, yeah, Growing Edge, and that was quite a good magazine.
When I get him on the
Um,
show, it might be a good idea to have you on too, because then we got two old friends telling stories. I'm sure you guys have a bunch of stories together.
I got one quick question before we wrap up, and it might be
sure.
a pretty quick answer, but I mean, you've seen the evolution of cannabis throughout
Yeah.
decades, and I'm sure you had favorite strains. You mentioned Haze as one of your favorites. I guess this is kind of a two-part question. How does modern cannabis, compare, in your opinion, to kind of what you grew up and what you saw evolve throughout the years? And two, what would you say your favorite modern strain is?
Okay. Yeah. Modern strain. Let's see. It's actually it was really quite strong some time ago, but I was a bit spoiled because I've been fortunate to be around um, expert growers all the time. Um, but it has improved. It has improved. There's just much more information now, a much larger selection. But I have to be honest, I think the gene pool is pretty polluted. Uh, there's not consistent breeding plants, true breeding plants. There's not so many of those. People that are quote unquote breeders are not formally educated, because breeding's usually about numbers, lots of numbers. You got to be really good with math. That part's changed. Um, the lower end cannabis has gotten tons better, lots better. Used to be the Mexican dope you get here, I mean, you'd be lucky to get 8%, or you'd get in America,
And it
you'd
would
get
smell like
8%.
ammonia.
Right, right. Yeah, it did. Yeah, very well could. Yeah, sometimes not, but it depends on how wet it was when they
Yeah,
pressed
they'd
it.
press it when it was fresh. It would mold.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of times that's what they do. They use those Adobe brick presses. You jump on. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what they do. And then modern strains, I like old stuff, to be honest. I mean, there's new stuff, but and also I got to admit this, I don't have the best palate. I don't have the best taste buds. I can't distinguish things so well. A lot of people say they do, but I know enough about smell to know that I am one of the many, and there's very few, or maybe, the top end is 5%, and then of those, there's 1% of that 5% that's a super taste. So most of the time when you hear things and people tell you they experience stuff, they're going on memory a lot of times. I can grow CBD here. In fact, I'm going to start that pretty soon, grow CBD. I'll start that in the basement where I've got a deal going with AC Infinity. AC Infinity, they've got all kinds. Well, actually, they've got really cool equipment. I'm pretty
They do.
Yeah, I
pleased.
like their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's top end, and it's also everything's digitized.
A lot of people have been mentioning to me that they like their gear.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Actually, I was over there hanging out. We went on a couple week, 2-week trip around Northern California. We're in Garberville.
Nice.
Didn't make it down to Willis, but down in Garberville and over to the other side of the
I saw
mountain.
you were at the Ridgeline Farms.
Yes, yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah,
I'm watching you, partner.
yeah.
I'm a Facebook stalker.
I
Yeah,
actually had one question also before we wrapped up.
sure.
Considering, as Cosmic said, you've seen the evolution of not only the different strains over the years, but the evolution of growing in both like a home growing and a commercial aspect. What do you think is like the single biggest improvement that you've witnessed take place in the cultivation space?
LEDs, LED lights, because they made
I love that answer.
everything else obsolete. There's just too much heat coming out of those halides. They're
Sodiums.
there's sodiums as well, and the combination lights. Well, they go either sodium or halide, but you'd have to, you could drive them with a bigger transformer, but they burn out sooner. Um, yeah, that's got to be the biggest thing. Um, yeah, and also the spectrum on those lights is just much more conducive to growing. Uh,
I want to add one
Nice.
thing to that. So, and I also, if you have one more moment, I want to make sure that Sasha doesn't have any questions he needs to ask too. But I think that environmental control is actually had more of an impact than the lighting, because high pressure sodiums and halide actually do a pretty good job, but a major issue that cultivators have had is lack of environmental control. And so
right.
now I believe that more people are trying to control their environment, and that's having a really dramatic effect on, how the plant grows.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that because uh, as this industry developed, all the money was in um, fertilizer. That's where you make the money, fertilizer. You sell the fertilizer, that's where the biggest markup was. That's where all the energy went, was go into the fertilizer. My fertilizer is better than yours.
It's consumable.
Yeah, and it's a consumable and thing. and the air, you can't see it. You look right through it. Uh, People don't realize just how important ventilation is or air circulation. Have no clue. There's no way and before you couldn't measure the CO2 level really inexpensively. There was those tubes that you suck the chemical through
Right.
and get a chemical reaction and have to read some color, which is pretty difficult. It's not a digital readout. Now you've got CO2 monitors that are really inexpensive or fairly inexpensive. Um, and also it can be integrated together too fairly easily. Before you'd have to have relays and set up your own system basically and have a basic knowledge of electricity and when the timer goes off, the fan goes
Right.
on and
Green Air Products, Harman.
yeah,
He
Harman,
he
right?
he
Now
put out the
there's
first another OG. Maybe we can get him on one day, but he made a controller that would turn off your CO2 when your exhaust fan came on. And
yeah,
it's just simple.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you, man, because you don't even know how important your book was for us at the time where we were a new country. We were in Yugoslavia. People in Yugoslavia had your book also. Like this
wow,
is crazy, man. It's like
right.
I've seen so many people growers, having your book on the shelf in those places you don't even know, man. It's like you
Well,
did something really, you really did a really big contribution to the community, to the culture, as
The
itself.
global
you're a,
community.
you're a real OG, a
Yeah,
legend,
he
like
yeah,
is.
I
for
guess gosh, it's just
He
I
doesn't
don't
have a
think.
big ego. That's also what makes him such a beautiful person.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Mhm.
I did my part. The part that was different with me was most people would get information and they would take that information and make money with it and keep it to themselves. My goal was to go the other way, to do the opposite of that. And it was a lot of hard work for a lot of years, but finally pays off. Everybody else is happy too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I want to leave you with this. One of my favorite musicians, I think you might love him too, was Jerry Garcia.
Oh yeah.
And I used to have friends that would leave the Dead show early to go wait at Jerry's hotel to get an autograph and say hello to him. And
Wow.
I always thought they were crazy because I used to say, I'm here for the music. I'm not,
Yeah, but dude, Jerry's not
a
with us
groupie to
anymore.
go, right? But the thing about it is, now that Jerry's passed, one of my biggest regrets was never being able to just say thank you.
Yeah.
Not to ask him for something or to take a picture. I mean, I'd love that. I'd love to have a picture of me and Garcia, right? But just
Yeah.
to say thank you. And I know that every single person that watches this podcast, the one thing they're going to say in the comments is thank you. And
Oh,
I know that when you go to, Spannabis or the Mary Jane festival, people want to talk to you and ask you questions. But I know the number one thing that happens is they say, thank you, Jorge. So
yeah.
with that, thank you, Jorge.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I mean, wow. Feels great. Wonderful. Well, I just look at it as I did my part,
Yeah,
stood
it
up
was
when
an
I was
awfully
supposed
big
to.
part, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
proud
I mean,
that
I've
I'm
known your
proud that
name
we're
since high
friends.
school. About 20 years there,
Yeah.
So I've been telling all my friends, like, oh, shoot, I'm going to talk to Jorge Cervantes. That's so fucking cool, dude. Like,
His first book was published before you were born, bro.
yeah.
Yeah. It was on my shelf when I was a baby. Like my dad had it for sure.
That's
Okay.
where I feel old. Man,
Uh,
damn it.
I tell people you're my old friend, but it has a double meaning. You're old, and we've been friends for a long time.
No, that's fun. That's great. Do
Yeah.
you still have the garden spout
No,
over
I
there?
don't. I don't.
Oh,
It burned down, and then I never opened it up again.
oh, it burned down.
This is a wrap for our show with that he joined us today. hoping that this is just part one of many parts. And I said before, maybe when we have Tom Alexander, you could join too, and we could have two old friends telling stories. I think that would be spectacular. But anyway,
Yep.
for now, we're gonna say goodbye, Jorge.
Venga.